Welcome to Do a Temple Way. So this afternoon I've got my friend Koshesai with me. She is a student and she's just got back from her study year abroad. So I just want her to kind of tell us a little bit more about her, where she's studying and what she's studying exactly.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all safe. As Callie said, my name is Koshesai. I am currently a student at the University of East Anglia. And as Callie also said, I have just returned from what is known as my study year abroad. So I was studying overseas for the entire academic year until COVID said it's time to come home. So I was studying actually at two different institutions in two different countries, two different continents. So I've had a really interesting year. I studied at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana, my now favorite country in the whole wide world. And then I did my second semester at the George Mason University in the United States of America, the state of Virginia in Fairfax. So that was quite cool. A lot to share with that. And I currently study, my current degree is international development with economics.
So what are you hoping to do with that now? Or has it changed? What did you have in mind to do, and has it changed since you've had your year abroad?
Okay, so I want to work in refugee camps with humanitarian crises, just the development within those specifically. So kind of being on the front line and kind of being called to wherever the need is, as it were. That is something I still kind of want to do, but I understand that's maybe like a later goal. So on the way there, I'm looking more into development research and then development implementation of programs. So kind of seeing a program from the beginning, seeing what the need is, where it's needed, implementing it, and then evaluating it. So hopefully still allowing me to travel to very interesting places across the world. I'd say that from studying my year abroad, no, it hasn't really changed. If anything, I've kind of become more firm in that, I definitely think I want to live overseas, God willing. But yeah, I feel it's become more firm, and I'm now okay, I kind of have a better understanding of how I think I'm gonna go about getting something that I really enjoy and really love.
Yeah, oh, that's good. And I guess because of lockdown, you've still been studying while you've been on lockdown. So I know for a lot of people, it's been a time of kind of a lot of self-reflection and oh, what am I doing with my life? And oh, I don't know if I like that.
Yeah.
Have you had a moment to do that? Has that
Yeah.
kind of come into your head? Do I still want to do this? Or has
Yeah.
it been kind of, yes, I definitely want to be here. I definitely want to do this. How's it been?
Yeah, definitely. I think because of lockdown, my perspective not necessarily has changed entirely, but I've been made more aware of what I think and why I think certain things, and then how I want that to reflect kind of in my life. So I think for lockdown, for me, especially has kind of been I've seen more of a need of what I want to do, because whether we like it or not, whether we're in lockdown or not, there will still be humanitarian crises all across the world. There'll still be people who have refugee status. There'll still be people who need someone to kind of organize how they're going to eat throughout the day, things like that. So just this idea that, okay, sure, of course, I'm very lucky. I was able to fly back home in an instant, be with my family. There are people not in that same kind of fortunate kind of, there's a word I'm looking for and I can't find. People aren't as fortunate, and kind of understanding that the privilege that you have where you have it, but kind of wanting to be with people who would have wanted to have what I have, but unfortunately life circumstance hasn't allowed for that. So definitely given me more of a purpose, as it was, and understanding that what I want to do is quite important.
Yeah. Gosh, that's a really big extreme from kind of traveling to two continents that aren't your own. Well, right.
Yeah.
and also that contrast of being in your house in the UK, in Europe, there's fixed there.
Yeah.
You've just shared some of the kind of applications you've had from lockdown, but what were some of your main lessons or your biggest life lesson from your time abroad?
I'll start off by saying I thought I was going on my year abroad to live my best, to enjoy different foods in different countries. I love making new friends, especially like in international spheres. I was like, family, see you later. I'm going to live. And it was a year of self-awareness for me, and I wasn't ready for it. And it was like I learned so many different lessons, or had to keep learning the same lessons, that I left for my year abroad thinking like, oh no, Koshesai, you've got that. You'll be fine. You know who you are. You know where you stand with certain things, why you think certain things, X, Y, Z. So yeah, my year abroad was a year of learning who I am as a person a bit more. And as I said, I didn't expect it. So, but the biggest lesson for me was this idea of taking control over my life a bit more. And I guess kind of like the title of this live or this conversation, like being the captain of your own ship, was a lesson I had to learn, because beforehand, and I didn't realize it at all, because I was living my life. I was very happy, going through uni, meeting new friends, working different jobs, like being very comfortable in how life was. So I was like, oh, I think I'm fine. And then it was like, although I'm this independent person, when I'm put in situations where my independence is compromised, am I able to hold my own? Am I able to steer my own ship? And it turned out that in certain situations, no, I'm not. And so that was a difficult lesson for me, because people have always seen, I've always seen myself as someone who is very independent, is able to do things. And I still like stand by that. But then holding my own in situations where people have the capacity and ability to make decisions for me was something really difficult, really difficult. Yeah, and it's like coming home to kind of reflect on that and seeing how something so big, like a year abroad, where I was like, had this, I'm gonna go live my best, like had to be the opportunity where I was like, no, there are lessons I have to learn and learn again. And maybe one more time for me to know that, okay, I'm good now. I'm okay. Yeah, that is it. Like your sigh is like, yeah, it was intense. It was
a lot. Yeah, that's a big lesson to learn.
Honestly, and when you're not guys, when I tell you, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna live my life. Like the places I went to study, I chose myself. So I was like, I want to go there. I want to go there. I want to travel to do different continents. I want to be that girl who's catching flights instead of feelings. Like, and then no, and then the whole table was just shaken. It was crazy, honestly.
Wow, that's huge. Sorry, I just need a minute for that line, because I heard that one. That caught me. I like that a lot. But I guess you mentioned at the end there about having to learn a lesson again and again and again. And what do you think that's about? Like, why do you think that we think we've learned our lesson, but we might make a mistake again, or we might just make that same choice again, and feel the same amount of lesson every time? Like, why do you think that happens?
It was a question I had to ask myself, because I'm looking at myself, me. There was no one else. I was like, why are you doing this? We've just been through this. Why are you doing this again? We've just been through this. So this idea of like, I've never asked myself so many questions across the space of however many months I was overseas. I've always been quite firm in what I'm doing. Like, okay, cool, this is fine. But I was asking myself, like, we've been through that. We've gone through this. Like, why are we like almost having like an alter ego kind of in the background being like, Koshesai, but why are you doing this again? So like, what is it all about? I think this idea that for me, as I said, I kind of went on my year abroad thinking I knew where I was, what I had to do, like those majority type of lessons. But then this idea of having to learn things and learn things and learn things and see the same things. And this idea that lessons, just because you think you've learned them doesn't necessarily mean you have. And for me, it was a case of, in having to go through things several times,
Yeah.
I eventually had to be like, oh, so I did this time, I had to go and do something else this time. But having those two compartments, like I had to then add something else. So this idea that even though you think you're there are pieces of the puzzle that are missing. And you can't say you've completed a puzzle if there are holes. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah.
And it was difficult because I was like, it's just like, I've had enough now. I've had enough. But it was like a big character building. This idea of don't leave something unfinished. See it through, even if it means you have to do it again and again and again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
Just seeing it through and having this, being able to be like, okay, now we're where we need to be. Whereas beforehand, it was like, oh, I think I'm there, so we can move forward. It's like, life was like, no, let's go back and see again because there's something you haven't quite got right. So that's what it was. That's what I believe is behind a lot of these like repetitive lessons, for sure. Because it was like, oh, I thought I had it, but quite clearly I didn't. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That idea of just having to keep reapplying and keep experiencing, keep learning it for it to really sink in and stay there. I totally get that. I think we can apply that through like life experiences and through our education system and just all of that, all types of learning we do. We do have to, repetition is key. Unfortunately, with life experiences, we have to keep living and living and living to repeat. We can't just tell ourselves a lesson. Maybe we can, but I guess it's not as the long lasting effect. Like, I guess if you were learning, I don't know.
Use your example. You take photos.
Yeah, so I guess if I told myself the theory of taking pictures again and again and again, yeah, it might stick in theory, but then when it comes to actually taking the picture, it'll probably still take me a while to figure out how I'm supposed to do it. Whereas if I took the picture every time and made the mistake and then tried to improve it each time, and naturally it will just get better and better. Yeah, it makes sense. It's definitely something I can relate to. So that being said, then if we do have to repeat, and it works better to repeat in action rather than repeat in theory, be practical with it, what value or what place does someone else's wisdom have in our lives? What place does someone else's advice have in our lives? If that, obviously it's practical in their experience and you can maybe see what they've done, but if it's not practical in yourself, where does that stand? Is it of value? Is it something we just do but actually it's not helping anybody? What do you think?
Wow. Whoa. I think for me, based on like what I've experienced and what I've seen, I first like to say I'm very lucky in the sense that I genuinely have a very solid circle around me of friends, of family, various different people I can go to for various different types of advice. And that's something I really thank God for. So for me, the kind of advice thing has been, there's different types. So if I don't know how to approach a situation, I'll be like, hey, whoever it is I'm speaking to, this is what has happened. And where I currently am, I have no idea how I'm going to go through it, what is going to come about it, how I want to approach it. So that's one sense, in the sense that I don't have any idea. Like, I need someone to almost put ideas into my head, or based on the advice that I know they're going to give me out of their love for me, being like, okay, based on the various different factors, this is how you should maybe approach it. And then kind of get my brain ticking to be like, okay, based on the context, how can that apply? There's other times where I know I want to do something, but even if we don't like to admit it as humans, like looking for other people's confirmation, sometimes it's necessary if you're looking to make, in your opinion, big decisions or decisions that involve other people. It's like, based on your understanding of how human beings are, if you're faced with this situation, what would you like to do, or how would you approach it? Just kind of like a I agree with how you're thinking of approaching it, or I'd agree with this, or maybe change this. So with those kind of two different advice, it's just for me, advice is like a good thing for my being, just to like remind me of that there's people around me who really care for me, who really love me, who really want to see me do well. But also this idea that I shouldn't have to go through it alone, and if I'm unsure, if I haven't seen something before, it's absolutely fine to go and ask someone. And I think that's another lesson I learned, because in kind of being an independent person, you're scared to ask for help. But there are friends, like I have friends who love it when I ask them things, because they get to see that, okay, she's allowing herself to maybe be a bit more vulnerable than what she's used to, or like asking people because she genuinely needs the help, and opposed to kind of going for it all on my own. So that's definitely like for me the sense of advice. But at the same time, advice can also be this idea that I don't believe you have to experience everything for you to know that it's not for you, or that it's wrong for you to do in a situation. So someone's advice can often come with their own anecdote and be like, okay, once I tried this and then this is how it turned out. And if you can apply it to your situation and see like, oh, maybe I have that kind of same potential outcome, then I'm like, no, that's not what I want. So advice, I think, is necessary, provided you know how to apply it to your context, because not all advice that you're given is going to match you perfectly. And some advice that you're given, it will get to a point where you're like, oh, I'm taking this advice, I'm walking with this person's advice, and you hit somewhere, you're like, uh-oh, we can't keep doing this. So that just that kind of discernment of like how you use the advice, where you apply the advice, the outcomes you kind of want from the advice you've been given, and like mixing and matching, because you can also have too much advice. So kind of, yeah, just that idea of, you know, knowing when to accept it and what to do with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess kind of putting it in this kind of this analogy of having your ship and being the captain of your own ship, I guess that's kind of having people on board that you can kind of look to and say, hey, you know, I'm still in charge of the final decision, but what do you think about this? And what would you do if you were in a situation, or if you have been in a situation, what did you do? And I guess kind of following on from that, then this idea of having people on your boat or your ship, how do you feel about the idea of choosing who comes on your ship, who lives these experiences with you, who gets the privilege of living this life with you and going through and making these decisions alongside you, even if it's just in the short term, like it could just be like going to visit a kind of a sightseeing location, for example. It's like, how do you feel like you can choose who comes with you, or do you feel like you should kind of just, whoever wants to come can come and we will just do it? How do you feel about being selective as to who comes on your ship?
I think for me, and maybe this isn't a bad thing, and maybe it's something I should consider, but I've never been someone who stratifies, let's say, or who kind of has a criteria people have to fill in order for them to buy tickets for my ship. Let's put it in that analogy. I've never been someone who is like, okay, you can come on provided you do this, provided you do that, provided you do this. Just because I kind of move with this idea that everybody you meet and every opportunity you come across in this thing called life, this crazy thing we're all trying to figure out, is meant for you. What's meant for you will reach you. What's not meant for you won't. And not wanting to like meddle too much with that process. And this idea that in specifically accepting one person's request for a ticket and denying another person's request for a ticket for my ship means that maybe it won't steer in the direction it was supposed to go in.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, because then how do you kind of balance it with this idea, like who you let on and who you don't let on, or should you let people on or shouldn't you let people on based on what you've seen? And like this protecting yourself and all of that, which is a conversation for another day. But I think for me, I've always been quite open to people, and it's something I don't regret. Like, I've never had a situation where I was like, oh, in being myself, my open self, this person has come in and like ruined something for me. And even when I've had situations where maybe the outcome hasn't been as positive as I wanted it to be, at least I was able to see, okay, this is what I've learned from this situation. And if it means I still let everybody on the ship and I'm just a bit more wary of how I let people behave once they're on the ship, then so be it. But kind of giving people the opportunity to prove themselves, for me, I guess, is a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a conversation with someone once, quite a few years ago now, but it kind of stuck with me. And they said about this idea of trust, and how trust should isn't to be earned, but it can be taken away. So it's that idea of you trust everyone and you give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But then if they start to prove themselves untrustworthy or just not right for the situation, then you can take it away.
Yeah.
Rather than being like,
Yeah.
you got
From
to
the
prove to me that you're worthy of coming on this boat. You've got to prove to me that you're not going to be annoying or whatever,
yeah.
whatever it is. So yeah, I get that, and I do try to apply that where it's possible. Sometimes it does mean that you get burnt, or it does mean that you don't have
Lets a bit of water in. Yeah, it's
yeah. But I guess you only ever know the route you take. So you might think that if they didn't come, it would have been better, but you don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
Like, it might not have ended up where it's supposed to go. So it's
And
just
then
a perspective when those kind of
yeah, definitely. And back with this idea that you like, what is, honestly, I think I believe with my whole heart, like, and my entire being, like, what is for you, who you meet, situations you come across, experiences, be them bad or good, like, it's part of your growth and how you are as a person. And then I think for me, kind of this idea of not stratifying like who is allowed on my ship meant that I had to learn this idea of like trust, and being like, I've given you my trust from the jump, but we have to move. Like, I can't make it a free for all, even when you're now on the ship. So this idea of being like, okay, I'm the captain, I'm gonna steer my ship. Sure, you can come and have a go, or sure, you can come and see how I do certain things, but being able to kind of reclaim that power back is something I had to really learn, because I found myself in circumstances where I maybe let someone steer this thing for a bit too long, and then having to kind of struggle to take back something that was actually originally mine, was really important to me. But I was only able to learn how to reclaim that power, or that ability to steer my own ship, in giving someone else the power that I should have never really kind of compromised, if that makes sense. So if I'm moving with this free for all, everybody on the ship, let's all have a good time, just knowing kind of when to draw the line and be like, okay guys, I invited you, but it was never for you to take over.
Yeah, absolutely. So would you ever, you sound quite like, this is how I'm doing it, this is how I'm living my life right now, but would you ever consider kind of sailing alone and just doing something, maybe not as your whole, like, your like life motto, but in like a particular circumstance, would you be willing to try just doing it by yourself, just to eliminate any risk of nonsense? Something smaller scale, that you,
Yeah.
potentially something that you're really looking forward to experiencing, and you're just not confident that if you let people come with you, it's going to go well. Would you consider just doing it solo, just to eliminate that?
Yep. And I had to. And I had to. Oh my goodness. Yes, I had to. And yeah, and it wasn't even a case of like doing it alone. In my circumstance, it meant that I couldn't do it at all at that current time.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So I wanted to go somewhere and I didn't go. I'll make it as simple as that. But this idea of like I then now have to make the conscious decision to return to the country that I'm coming from to do that thing, maybe by myself or with people who I want to do it with.
Yeah.
Just so that experience isn't ruined for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm genuinely someone who loves like capturing experiences, memories, holding those close to me. And in holding memories and experiences close to me, I'm also holding the people around me very close. So my association with that place will apply to you because we went together, for example.
Yeah.
And if I feel as though I'm in a situation whereby I'm going to look back on the situation and not enjoy my memory, it's not worth like the shaking of my peace. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Um, it's and now looking on it, it gives me something to look forward to because it means that okay, sure, I didn't do it then, but
Mm.
now I know I can do it and I know I'm going to enjoy it. Whereas beforehand, I was in a and R and R, and sometimes even though umming and ahhing kind of shows uncertainty, it shows that you're certain for a particular decision, particular
Yeah, one
side.
of the sides. Yeah. Makes sense.
Um,
Yeah.
in saying like, oh, I'm not sure is basically sometimes saying no, because I shouldn't be unsure. I should be able to be like, yes, I want to do this. And I understand, like, obviously in life, you'll find situations whereby you actually don't know. And that's when maybe you seek advice. And on this certain situation, I did seek advice, but I ummed and ahed so much. And I was like, Koshesai, if you want it to be a happy story for you to tell, not only yourself, but your friends and family, make a decision for yourself. And I think that was a big part in my year abroad specifically, and I guess in life, and being like, I want to do this, but I want to do it in such a way that I'm going to enjoy. So having to sacrifice that like immediate gratification and transfer it into like deferred gratification to know that I'm gonna enjoy it in the long term, even if it means I'm gonna take a bit longer to get there. Sis, I had a year. I had a year, a whole year, honestly, of all these lessons. And I was like, by the time I came back, I was like, yeah, I'm good. I had a good time. I am back and I'm better, because honestly, I was just like, I was ready to be the girl catching flights, not feelings. And now I came to learn lessons. I was like, what is this?
Oh, there were a lot of feelings involved.
Oh, yeah, I was catching flights, not feelings, and then before we knew it, we'd flipped the coin. The switch was flicked. I was like, wow,
A lot of feelings. Oh man, that does sound like a lot. But I wanted to ask you about this kind of perspective concept,
mm-hmm.
um, and really push that a bit further. And like, sometimes like I see you as a very positive person, like very, very, very positive, and I think that's a great quality to have. And I just wanted to kind of explore how far you kind of push that positivity and that positive perspective. Like how do we practically kind of take ownership of how we feel about certain situations, because obviously we've talked a lot about having control and being able to kind of make decisions and say yes or no, or go with it and be like that's enough, or no thank you. But when it's situations where we don't have that much control, do you feel like we do still have control of our perspective and our feelings in the moment? So if you're already on a ship and the people are on it and it's just not going how you planned, there's no change in it now, we're in it. Um, how do you feel about that kind of idea of kind of making yourself positive or making the situation positive? Is there a way to affect the circumstance? Can you make the situation positive, or can you only make yourself feel positive? What do you think?
It's wow. Oh gosh, it's weird. Like, this idea of perspective is so unique to people, I think,
Yeah.
because in being positive, you already have so many different types of positive. Like, the spectrum is so
Yeah.
long, so large. Like, and then how you understand that is also very different. Like, so someone's like standard positivity is someone else's "you're driving me insane, let's have a look at the realism of the
Realistic, yeah.
situation." Yeah. um I think this is a difficult question, like, I wouldn't even lie, because I'm a firm believer in kind of going through the motions
Hmm.
and not masking what you feel. I think, yeah, because I think there were times where I kind of masked what I felt, um, in hope not to like hurt someone else's feelings. Um, and then in masking it, it's like, okay, now I have to kind of go with this front that I've created and move with it because that's what I've told everyone else. So
Yeah.
it's like, on the one hand, I'm pretending as if I'm this way, but on the other hand, deep down inside, I'm fuming. So it's like,
Hmm.
where do you strike the balance in like not compromising how you feel about certain things for other people, but then also being like, no, this is how I feel, and that's absolutely fine because the situation sucks.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't have an answer to your question because I think
Yeah.
in I think in being trying to be this kind of positive person and like seeing the good in situations or seeing like what best I can take out of it. There have been situations where I'm like, nobody even come and tell me like, oh, it's all gonna work out, because I don't want to hear that. You know, because honestly, I don't want to hear it, and I'm not gonna lie to you and pretend that I do. But
Hmm.
then also being, sometimes I find comfort in knowing that the situation is what the situation is and there's nothing I can do about it. Because like, no matter how upset I am, no matter how angry I am, the situation is what it is. And like, sometimes I genuinely feel like you can cry, you can scream, but it won't change the situation. So I guess this takes us back to this kind of understanding of when you can make an impact in the situation and doing so accordingly.
Yeah.
And then understanding that sometimes like the situation is, sometimes you're on a ship that you're not the captain of and you have to move with someone else's agenda.
Yeah.
um and it's not ideal, but one day someone's going to be on your ship and have to move with your agenda.
Hmm.
So that kind of perspective and mixed perspective,
Hmm.
in just understanding that like we're dealt different cards at different times, and sometimes they'll be great and sometimes they won't be great. But this idea that there's never any rainbow without a little bit of rain and things like that, and
Yeah.
being able to like take hold of that, and just going through the emotions, and then
Hmm.
once I've expressed it however I needed to express it, being like, okay, but where do we go from here?
Hmm. So you said the concept of without, you can't have a rainbow without a bit of rain. So does that, from what I'm hearing, is that you would be someone who doesn't dance in the rain. You'll be someone that's like, it's raining. I'm not happy that it's raining right now. Yes, I can appreciate that it's going to make a rainbow, but I'm not happy that it's raining right now. I'm not going to dance because I'm not happy about the rain. Is that right? Is that the right kind of? That's what I was hearing, but correct me if that's not what you were saying.
I don't know.
Because that's what I mean. It's like that idea of, okay, well, this is rubbish. Like, I don't like the rain,
Mhm,
but I'm going to control how I react to the rain.
mhm,
I'm actually going to enjoy it in a different way. Like, it might interrupt something else I had planned.
mhm,
I don't know, put out my fire,
mhm,
but I'm going to dance in it instead, and have a different experience. Like, do you want to, or do you think we can? Can we kind of take ownership of how it kind of how the day ends
mhm.
in that sense? Does that make more sense?
Yeah, no, definitely. Am I a dancer in the rain? I think sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes maybe.
Mm.
Um, but then I think, yeah, maybe a crier in the rain if I see it as like a situation that really sucks. But
Yeah.
then like this kind of I don't know, is there a specific order to how a rainbow is made? Like, does the rain comes and then the sun comes to create it, right? I think.
From what I've noticed, yeah, it tends to
So
be.
yeah. So for me, maybe that idea of like, okay, you see how there's a time and a season and a place for everything. So this idea of, okay, like when the rain is here, I won't necessarily dance in it if I'm really upset about the situation. But then when the sun now comes, understanding that the rain had to come in order for this rainbow to be here.
Yeah.
Um, but am I a dancer in the rain? Not always. I won't lie, not always. Even if I look as though I'm dancing in the rain. So if you're dancing, sure, I'll dance with you, but I could be fuming, like dancing with anger. So yeah. Am I a dancer in the rain? And that's such a good, that should be an interview question. Are you a dancer in the rain? Um, I think I'd want to be more of a dancer in the rain.
Yeah.
But I think maybe my dance comes in like retrospect.
Okay, like
Yeah.
after the fact, like.
Yeah, so no, I'm not. So then I'm not a dancer in the rain. I'm like a dancer in retrospective rain. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think I really want to be a dancer in the rain. Like, I really want to kind of not be a victim
Hmm.
in like any situation.
Hmm.
Like, I don't want to dismiss feelings. I
Hmm.
also want to kind of be like, well, yeah, but I'm still here, and I still want to make the most of every situation, because the reality is, and the harsh reality is, that sometimes, or at one point, we might not get to see the rainbow or the sunshine. We might just end with rain. Like, the situation might not have that. It might just rain, and that's it. That's all you get. You don't get no
Yeah,
rainbow.
there's nothing.
You don't
None of
get
that.
afterwards, right? So that idea of being present in the moment and
Yeah.
really living for the now, because I think it's very easy to say we don't have tomorrow, we don't know what's next going to happen next, and we don't. And it's very easy to not apply it properly. It's very hard to get the balance, I think, and I've not mastered it.
Hmm.
Um,
I agree.
I do think there is room for entertaining the thought of, like, even if the here and now isn't what you wanted,
Hmm.
you can't really understand why it's happening. To kind of find a way to reshape it, or
Hmm.
repurpose it even.
Yep.
Because I guess, yeah, you can be like, oh, it's raining and it's ruined my plan. It's like, okay, let's repurpose this rain. Let's
Yeah.
collect the rain for water, or
Mhm.
do a
Yes, I
in it.
love
Do
that.
you know what I mean? Like, kind of,
Hmm.
I think maybe that's a way of putting it, because I think a lot of times when it's real stuff, like real difficult stuff, where people are like, well, no, I'm not gonna dance in this
Because
because I'm
there's nothing to
grieving,
dance
or this is
on.
really difficult. It's really painful. I'm not gonna. Of course, I'm not gonna dance.
Hmm.
It's like,
Yeah.
well, don't have to dance, but is there a way for you to repurpose that rain,
Yeah.
rather than just focusing on what it's ruined?
Hmm.
What can you use it
Okay.
for?
Yeah.
Because, as I say, yes, we can say, yeah, it's gonna make a rainbow in the future, but we don't know that for sure, and it's not guaranteed. So what can we do with the rain while it
Yeah.
actually rain, and
Yeah.
not rush it to be a rainbow and be like, I'm just gonna have to sit with this until it becomes a rainbow. Like, okay, so what can we do with the rain now?
Yeah.
Um, Hard, but I think it's doable. I definitely feel
Yeah.
like it's achievable to
Hmm. I agree.
repurpose the rain. For some people, maybe that's a dance, a rain dance, but
Yeah.
not
Yeah. No,
myself.
that's cool. That's cool. Like, and yeah, like, yeah, I like that a lot. Like, it won't always be a rainbow. Like, and sometimes you're just gonna have to suck it up and be like, okay, but what do we do with with this rain? Like, how can we use it elsewhere? What can we fertilize? What can we grow from
Yeah,
this?
yeah. I guess
Water is
it's kind of,
good.
it's like that silver lining concept of a
Yeah,
cloud, isn't it? Like, finding the pro to it.
do it.
But I think it kind of pushes it to another level when it's not just like, well, this is good because it could do this. It's like, well, okay, let's get practical about it and actually take ownership
Okay.
and control that a bit more.
Mhm.
Be like, right, I'm going to use it for this. It's like, yeah, this is going to be good. Which obviously becomes a little bit more difficult when other people are involved. You know, if you've got people on your ship when this is happening, that can become a bit more difficult. But you never know; it could be really beneficial for the people that are there, for you to be kind of have that leadership role on your ship. Be like, I'm the captain. This is
Mhm.
what we're doing about the situation. If
Yeah.
you can kind of find a way to start practicing that,
Mhm.
I'm talking to
Definitely.
myself as well right now. If we can find a way to practice that, um, and apply that more often, again, like we said at the beginning about you have to practice, practice, practice to make
Yeah.
it natural for you. And I
Mhm.
think this is, I know for me, it's very unnatural. I'm very much, I'm just going to sit and cry in the rain because it sucks.
Mhm.
But I really want to push myself to be more proactive about repurposing that rain,
Yeah.
doing more of that. So I think it could be huge for people to witness and see and learn from
Mhm.
when you do have them on your ship. I think that'd be a real privilege to kind of be around that kind of energy. Be really cool.
I agree. Definitely. Definitely.
Gosh. So we are um I guess kind of wrapping up the conversation. It's a lot of big concepts to kind of get your head around. Friendships, spending time with people, who to not who say yes to, who say no to, do you say at all? You know, how do we deal with a bad situation? Do we just sit with it? Do we change it? Can we change it? Do we take advice from people? Don't we? How do we learn our own lessons? We have to reapply. There's so much stuff. Like,
This was my year abroad. Duh. This was it. Every day, something new. I was like, I'm tired now. I'm honestly, yeah,
a lot
big
going on.
concepts.
But yeah. So I guess I wanted to ask, I guess, two parts.
Mhm.
They're just to kind of finish off on this idea of the controlling your ship and being the captain of it. Um, have you got any stories or examples you can give us where you felt like, okay, I have learnt this thing and I'm gonna apply it this time? Did you have any moments on your while you were away where you were able to actually apply that lesson rather than just in the after be like, I learnt it, but then don't make and then
Mhm.
same choice again? Did you have that chance?
Yeah. And
Tell
I
me.
think for me, and this is something I'm very happy, and this is how like now I know I've learned the lesson.
Mm,
Because taking that step and being like, okay, you've seen this, girl, you've seen this. So now what are you gonna do in order to maintain the joy that you deserve?
mhm,
Um, so for example, based on a former lesson in my first semester, in my second semester in the States, we have a spring break. So it's 1 week break throughout the entire semester. The semester is like 17 weeks, so I don't know how this works, but that's a story for another day. So there was this 1 week that we got off. And in when I was in Ghana, I intended to do a little bit of African travel, a bit more West Africa, because I'm a Southern African girl, so I hadn't really been to the West. So I was really looking forward to kind of see, once I'd seen the culture in Ghana, I wanted to see like, okay, in neighboring countries, in Togo, in Benin, in Nigeria, like what kind of other stuff can I see and how can I learn from it, experience it, and all of that. Long story short, that just didn't happen. I didn't manage to travel outside of Ghana when I was in Ghana. And it was something I was like, I really wanted to do, like, really wanted to do. And I spent my birthday in Ghana and I
mm,
wanted to travel outside of Ghana for my birthday within West Africa. And it's just like, I had these plans, and because I didn't know this lesson of how to say yes or say no where I needed to, I couldn't do that.
mm,
So it meant that in my second semester now, I wanted to go overseas for my spring break because I was like, I've been to the US. Of course, there's so many different states, but it's like, when else am I going to be this side of the world?
mm.
Because I don't really have much of an interest in like not Northern Africa, Northern America, that kind of thing. So I was like, Koshesai, we've seen this from last semester. You didn't go anywhere. So now you have a decision whether to jump to another state that you could do over the weekend, or you're gonna make it work for yourself in such a way that it's like you're gonna go overseas. So like amongst my friends, so there were a group of 4 of us. One of the girls wanted to go to somewhere else in America. One of the girls' family was coming to the States to visit her within her spring break. So then it was just me and another girl. And there was an opportunity to kind of travel with a group of people that we weren't too familiar with, to, where did they go? To like Miami. And I wanted to go to Miami, I really did, but I told myself I wanted to go overseas. So I could have just been like, okay, yeah, we'll go in a group. Yeah, we'll go to Miami, sure thing, knowing that I wanted to go overseas. So not like the situation was bad as such, but me and this girl could have had a good time, overseas, the 2 of us, because we're good friends at this point, or we just tag along and make the easier decision to like go with a group who kind of know what they want to do, blah, 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 blah. So we went around, like umming and ahhing. And this idea of, as we were talking about, like umming and ahhing sometimes being a decision for you. This time I was like, no, I don't know. And I'm not going to say I don't, and I'm not going to say yes or no, because I actually don't know. So we ummed and ahed. And I think one day we were just looking at flights. And beforehand, we'd seen like there were X amount. And you see how Skyscanner and websites like that work. They see you looking. So if they've seen you looking now, phew. So we now checked for another flight to somewhere else and was like, but last time we checked, it wasn't this much. Like, what's going on? And then I was like, to my friend, I was like, sis, I'm going to go here. If you'd like to come with me, I'd love to have you with me. I'd love to go with you. But I made a promise to myself based on an experience that I had formerly in my last semester, to kind of take hold of this carpe diem, like seize the day. Because when else am I going to be this side? Where else am I going to be able to have this kind of opportunity to fly? Although it's a bit more expensive to go from the UK to where we wanted to go. That's not money I have. So I was like, while we're here anyway, so kind of being like, okay, do you know what? If it means I'm going by myself, I'm going by myself, but at least I can say I've gone. If you want to come with me, sure. So this idea that I am now steering my own ship, you can have your ship too, and it doesn't have to be on the same path, but we could do it parallel. And lucky enough for me, the girl also wanted to go overseas. She just needed someone to kind of be the leader in that situation. So for me, it was great because it meant that I got to go to Mexico, and I honestly, one of the best like places, gorgeous, absolutely incredible. And just kind of looking back on it now, like I'm a big person for photos, and being like, looking back at the photos, it's like, I did that, but I was only able to do that because I had to learn a lesson beforehand. So definitely, I think now I've seen that I have it within me, because I thought I had it within me. This is what I was saying before. Like, I went on my year abroad, flights, not feelings. I'm going to do everything I said I was going to do. And then having people kind of interfere or like give me other options that I know I didn't want, but because everyone else was doing it, I was like, oh, maybe I should too. And then not being happy with the outcome in that, and seeing that, do you know what? If you're in a place where you're not going to be forever, because some years abroad only lasts for a year, you have to seize the day for yourself, because your joy, your happiness, your memories matter just as much. And if you're looking at it selfishly, if not more than the next person. So this idea that my joy, my happiness matters, and if it doesn't matter to anybody else, it matters to me, and that's all I should really be concerned about. So thank God, like, for that lesson, and being able to kind of see the lesson in such a big way was great for me, because beforehand I was like, oh, but and then it's like, nope, this is what we're doing, because I've seen this before now, and I don't want to fall flat to my indecisiveness, if you call it that, or my care. Like, I care too much about what people think, and that's another thing I learned. Like, it's okay, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Wow. I'm really glad that you got to kind of apply that lesson and have the confidence to do it, because that is huge. And I'm glad that you had a positive experience out of it as well, because that would have been really sad if you'd done that and then it went downhill.
Yeah,
So I'm really happy that that happened, and I hope that you continue to
I hope so
make those
too.
kind of decisions and actually really get to enjoy this life that you've got planned out for yourself. And yeah, it's been really, I've enjoyed listening to your story some more, and kind of just hear what lessons you were kind of experiencing, and even what you've experienced now you've come back. I know when we spoke offline that you haven't had much time to kind of soak it up, because you just got back and you still have to keep studying and just be on lockdown.
Yeah,
So there hasn't been much room for that. But now that you've finished your year and
it is fine. Yeah, now I think I finished my year, I'm definitely gonna, because like when I'm speaking about it, I'm just like, who's talking? Who is saying all this stuff?
yeah, it's a lot.
Oh, you have like,
Hmm.
you kind of have a lot of stories to share. And I think sometimes you think like you've been through something, you've just been through it, and you don't realize like the building blocks it's having on your foundation, you know? So now I think definitely like some quiet time is very necessary. And this has been so good for me because it's like, Koshesai, you have a lot of stuff to look back in retrospect, and a lot of stuff for you to acknowledge and like share it where necessary, and keep it to yourself if you don't want to. But this idea that allow the year abroad to be something that has changed you for the better, is powerful. And I'm really glad like I made the decision to go, because I didn't start off my degree thinking I was going to study overseas. It was a decision I made very last minute, but this idea that everything that's for you, for sure. So retrospect and quiet time is definitely needed, just to kind of soak it all in. Because like this hour is like, we're speaking about some big lessons, and I'm just like, wait, but I haven't even had time to think about, you know? So it's definitely a good starting point. So thank you so much, because we kind of put things off and like not want to talk about things sometimes, and this is obviously very necessary.
Yeah, I appreciate you being open with us to share, because it's very personal lessons and very personal experience, and it sounds like it was a real big shift for you and like emotional roller coaster along the journey. So I appreciate
Yeah,
you being open with us and willing to share that with us, and I look forward to hearing more of those lessons as you go through. But yeah, I guess it's also just a lesson for us that just because things we plan don't end the way we thought doesn't mean we're not going to benefit from them still. So if anything, you repurposed the rain of, okay, my year abroad didn't quite go how I wanted it, but I learned this, I did this, I still did that, I still achieved that.
yeah.
It's huge. It's a real big achievement what you've done this year.
Maybe
So
I did once.
well done you. It's really, really huge. But yeah, thank you again, Kosh, for joining us today. I will end it there. But yeah, it was really, really enjoyed talking to you today. And we look forward to hearing more of those lessons along the way.
Coming straight. Thank you. Be the captain of your own ships, guys. You won't regret it. Make decisions for yourself. It's necessary. I'm telling you, so you don't have to go through the turmoil I did, but definitely. Thank you so much for listening, guys.